spite of the oil, agriculture remains the base of the Nigerian economy, providing the main source of livelihood for most Nigerians. The sector faces many challenges, notably an outdated land tenure system that constrains access to land, a very low level of irrigation development, limited adoption of research findings and technologies, high cost of farm inputs, poor access to credit, inefficient fertilizer procurement and distribution, inadequate storage facilities, and poor access to markets have all combined to keep agricultural productivity low, with high post-harvest losses and waste. Agriculture remains the largest sector in Nigeria, contributing an average of 24% to the nation's GDP over the past 7 years. That's from 2013 to 2019. In addition to the sector employs more than 36% of the country's labor force, a feat which ranks the sector as the highest and the largest employer of labor in the country. Thanks for joining us today on TV and Business Daily. I am Chirande Osisiago, and today we shall be discussing more on the agricultural sector. Before we proceed with that, let's look at the business stories for today. Banks' total credit to the economy rose to 25.02 trillion naira as of the end of 2020. The Central Bank of Nigeria has said this was disclosed during the Monetary Policy Committee meeting in Abuja on Tuesday. Delivering the committee submission, the CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele said the figure rose by 13.4% between November and December. He said aggregate domestic credit also moved further up by 13.40% in December 2020 compared with 9.48% in the previous month. The committee urged the bank to sustain its current drive to improve access to credit to the private sector while exploring other complementary initiatives in collaboration with the federal government to improve funding to critical sector of the economy. Telecommunications companies have been licensed to register people who do not have national identity numbers so as to reduce the large crowd at the offices of the National Identity Management Commission, the NIMC has said. The Director General NIMC, Aliyu Aziz, said some other private and public organizations had also been licensed by the Commission to provide national identification numbers in order to address the crowd at the Commission's office. This came as workers of the Commission told their correspondent on Tuesday that the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Issa Patami, had constituted a committee to address the demands of the employees. NIMC workers had down on tools on January 7, 2021 in protest against the poor welfare issues at the Commission, but their strike was suspended after the intervention of the minister. Responding to our inquiry as regards measures taken by NIMC with respect to complaints by citizens and the crowd at the Commission's office, Aziz said mobile network operators had been empowered to also give their identity numbers. The local bus on Wednesday sustained positive sentiment on third consecutive trading session as the market capitalization gained 181 billion naira. The key market performance measured NSE or share index and market capitalization rose by 0.83% as market sentiment extended gaining strike following investors sustained optimism on undervalued stock. The market price closed positive as gainers at the close of trading section was 35, while decliners closed at 21. Consequently, the all-share index rose by 345.79 basic points or 0.83% to close at 41,930.73 index points as against 41,584.94 recorded the previous day. Market capitalization of equities appreciated by 181 billion naira or 0.83% to close higher at 21.9 trillion naira from 21.75 trillion naira as market sentiment remained on the green territory. Meanwhile, turnover of 543.75 million shares in 6,773 deals was recorded in the day's trading. Nigerian's foreign exchange forex reserve rose from $34.94 billion last November to $36.23 billion by January 21st, 2021 on the back of increase in global crude oil prices. The Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, who spoke at the end of the Monetary Policy Committee meeting of the bank, said the increase reflected improvements in crude oil prices, partial global economic recovery, amid optimism over the discovery and distributions of coronavirus pandemic vaccines by most developed economies. He added that the nation's economy and its global counterparts had continued to show prospects for recovery from the effects of COVID-19. He assured of improved economic growth in Nigeria in the first quarter of 2021. He also urged the federal government to take more urgent steps to tackle the challenges of insecurity so as to curb inflation, adding that insecurity also posed a threat to food security. And that's the business update on television Nigerian. I am Chiwando Osisiago. We'll be taking a quick break now. Stay with us.
My name is Chiwando Osisiago, presenter Television Nigerian Business Daily. In a globalizing world, ours is to keep you engaged, informed, and educated on contemporary happenings in the business world. We therefore command a special audience of business-minded viewers who are eager to know more about business. I mean, your business. Why don't you take advantage of our special affordable offer to let the world know about your concepts, your goods, and of course, your services? You can call us on 080-3071-6959 or 070-3234-9054. You can also visit us at Television Nigerian in Guzapi, Abuja, and follow us on all our social media handles on Facebook, YouTube, and of course, on Twitter at Television Nigerian. Your business is our concern.
Thanks for joining us again on the program, and if you're just joining us, it's CBN Business Daily. Like I said earlier, we shall be discussing on COVID-19, the agricultural sector in focus. My guest is in the studio. He is a journalist and also a farmer, Mr. Julius Ogo. You're welcome to CBN Business today.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning, viewers.
Good morning. All right, let's go straight to the topic for today. We're talking about mostly today about the agricultural sector in Nigeria. So first of all, what can you say about the security challenges affecting the agricultural sector?
Well, the security challenges are enormous, and it is quite unfortunate that in spite of the effort to contain insecurity, it is escalating by the day. And like I've mentioned several times on your program, it is happening mostly in places where the people are rural folks who subsist on farming, whose primary activity is agriculture. And you know, with that kind of thing, you know that naturally the crisis of food insecurity would only escalate. And it is happening, and we're feeling it. At one point, towards the last quarter of last year, it was almost impossible to get onions in the market. One of the reasons is that insecurity stopped farmers from going to their farms, apart from the environmental factor that involved flooding, which washed away a lot of farmlands in the areas where onions is heavily cultivated. So until something is done, and or we get the bandits and the armed militias to recant and to repent and to set aside the weapons and let us live a normal life. The effort the government is making to get Nigeria to the level of food sufficiency will continue to be in abeyance. They will continue to put off the gains that were made, and this is not good for the country because, as we know, food sufficiency is part of a nation's strategic power in terms of international relations, international politics, and diplomacy. One of the stabilizing factors the country has, and an instrument that the country can rely on for its own security and prestige and power to negotiate and get deals on the multilateral deals table, is your capacity to feed your own population. So insecurity is setting Nigeria back heavily on that, and if nothing is done quickly and drastically, if we don't get the bandits and the armed men to repent and stop what they are doing, we are in for trouble, because in the long haul, all this backlog in production is going to impact on us, because if you don't have a reserve, if you don't have a healthy food reserve, there are times when food naturally, the supply is reduced. There are times when it happens on its own. It's a cycle. There is a time of abundance, and there is a time, because that during the time of abundance, you provide for the time when there will be a shortage. And the insecurity is stopping us even from having food at the time of abundance. So the build-up is going to be that with time, we will not have anything in the national reserves. And when we don't have anything in the national reserves, and we're in the kind of situation we find ourselves in today, then there's going to be a crisis of monumental proportion, because, like they say, a hungry man is an angry man.
Definitely. So now, with the high level of insecurity that you've just mentioned now, so how do you think farmers are actually coping in this period with the high level of insecurity in the country?
Somehow, the story that came from Borno, from Zabarmari last year, was very, very heartbreaking. When insurgents lured farmers, that's the privileged angle of the information I have. Insurgents lured farmers, that they were inviting them to a discussion or a negotiation, and gathered them and slaughtered them like rams. When farmers hear that kind of situation, naturally, these are people that have been displaced for many years. They have been displaced, and government has encouraged them to go back and settle and resume their normal activity, so that normalcy can resume, return to that region. And then, some madman, I'm sorry to use that word, comes in at night and slits people's throats as if they were animals for slaughter. And you see, when farmers hear this kind of thing, it is very, very discouraging. So to that extent, you would say it is really a very dicey situation. But again, there are pockets of hope. There are windows of opportunity in other places. There are some places where these things are not happening. Since Teso Akwaza, is that his name? I hope I got it right, but his alias was Ghana. Since he was, neutralized in Benue State last year, the incidence of the purported farmers-herders conflict in that region has not been in the frontline news as it was prior to that period. You understand? So it means if some level of sanity is restored in an environment, we hope that natural activity and the people's way of life will be revived in those places. So, and somehow the activity of the security agencies in the Northwest and in other places in the last few weeks has been, what the reports we keep getting is they are making a mileage over the bandits and all of that. So if you hope that if this thing is successfully contained, over time, if we cannot get them to negotiate and to ask them to lay down arms, and we have to conquer them militarily, whatever is done to stop it is the only thing that can get agriculture back on its feet wholesale. For those of us in the peace of Abuja and other places, we can continue to work, hoping that the insecurity is stopped at the epic centers. Because if it is not stopped there, it keeps spreading. Little by little, it gains more ground. And when it gains more ground, all of us, for fear of the unknown, who are farmers, will sit back at home. And you sit back, it is time for you to go plant your crops. You didn't go to plant. So when the time for harvest comes, what are you going to harvest? So who suffers? You suffer, the country suffers. So it's actually very, very dicey for our economy, and we hope that these things are overcome so that it will be peaceful for everyone. This attitude of thinking that having a gun is the ultimate is gaining ground. So many people are using guns to force their way into it. Ultimately, you discover that, okay, even if you have a gun to force somebody against their wishes, there will come a time when you have bullets, but you won't have food. If you don't have food, you won't have energy. If you don't have energy, you won't be able to go out to fire your bullets.
Because we need food to survive.
Sure.
So now, okay, so how much advantage do we have in terms of crop production when you compare it to other countries? As you know, Nigeria is known as one of the largest crop producers in the world.
Yes. Unfortunately, we're gripped in insecurity, like we've been saying all along. Nigeria is by far the largest producer of yams in the world. We produce like 70%, over 70% of the world's total production of yam. We are also by far the largest producer of cassava in the world. The world produces about 150 million metric tons of cassava. Nigeria alone produced about 1/3 of that, over 50 million metric tons of cassava per annum. Nigeria is the third largest producer of cocoa in Africa and fourth in the world after Ivory Coast, Ghana, and Indonesia. So, what comparative advantage are we making of these crops? That's the question you will naturally ask. What comparative advantage are we making of the yam? When India produces something, like they put their hands on the COVID vaccine now, you begin to hear about India in connection with that thing. So the world is not hearing about Nigeria in connection with yam or cassava or cocoa. For many reasons, because we have not been able to drive and maximize the level of take advantage, full advantage of what we have. We have not taken, we should take comparative advantage of what we have that gives us a mileage over our neighbors and competitors. So what are we doing with our yams? We have not turned it into something that somebody somewhere can easily consume. We want to export yam, we're exporting the tubers. We're not exporting yam flour or some derivative that is, made from yam that the world somewhere will know how to use or learn to use. You understand? It's just like pastries and pastas are made from flour. And others who have the advantage of producing corn flour and other flours in other places have known that they can make it into spaghetti or macaroni and ship it to Nigeria. So why can't we make our yam into something that the world can learn to use and ship it to them, and do the same with our cassava? You understand? So we're the largest producers of these commodities, but they remain at subsistence production level, and they remain at, and we cannot transform them into finished manufactured products that the world can use. And so what are we doing? We're struggling to sell the tubers and what have you, and we're not even living as if we know that we have these strengths and advantages. So I think the agricultural value chain, I will continue harping on that. I've harped on that so many times. The agricultural value chain has to be maximized and made functional to the extent to which upstream the production comes, like yams and cassava. Downstream, it is transformed into finished products that can be packed and sold to people. And when they discover somewhere that there is this thing that Nigeria makes, the name of Nigeria will also fly, like the name of some European countries is flying all over the world now about COVID vaccines. Yes, at one point, Madagascar was trending last year when the lockdown phase of COVID, the blanket lockdown phase was trending. Madagascar was in the news for having a specific kind of plant that can be made into medicines that cures coronavirus. And unfortunately, as it is with third world countries, now we're talking about vaccines. We're looking back at Europe and America and China. Everybody has forgotten about Madagascar. So this is how Africa and Nigeria don't take advantage of what they have. If you look at the news, nobody is talking about Madagascar again. Meanwhile, if that plant has that capacity to cure coronavirus, Madagascar should be trending, just like Pfizer is.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay, aside the insecurity you've mentioned that the sector is actually facing, what other challenges do you think the agricultural sector in Nigeria is going through or facing at the moment?
Yes, there are many challenges, and some of them are environmental, some of them are funding and policy and all of that. Environmental challenges continue to face us. We are in the tropics and we rely on rain-fed agriculture, which means we can't grow crops out of the rainy season. It is dry season now and everybody has gone to rest. If we lived naturally, I would say that is even the best for all of us, because there's a time for everything. There's a time and season for everything. So if we lived naturally as human beings ought to live, that is even the best. Yes, because you grow corn when you should grow it, you grow yams when you should grow it, and there are other things that also thrive in the dry season, like fruits, mangoes, cashew, and all of that. These were going into the season when you'll be seeing them on the streets everywhere. Udara and all of that. Locust beans. These are things that are natural to us. So if we learn from nature, you would see that these things happen in their own seasons. But because of economics of scale, because of growing populations, because of a world that is now materialistic, we now have to grow more food to feed more mouths, which means we have to grow foods out of seasons. But we can't change nature because we can't change the environment. But we can make available things that can help cultivation in the dry season, which is like irrigation farming. But how can you do an irrigation farming effectively in a system where there is no water even for domestic consumption? Do you understand? So we have these challenges in infrastructure, we have these challenges in power or electricity. In the rice mill where I work, we're always buying diesel and buying water. Meanwhile, if we got power from electricity to run our engines, it will save cost. The cost to use in buying diesel and petrol and other things to run your generators can help you to employ more staff. You understand? So if we realize these challenges and make a conscious effort to stabilize the system where people can work within minimum cost and achieve maximum productivity, the economy will be all the better for it. So there are these challenges we are facing. There are these challenges in funding, and there are challenges in communal clashes. And people, it's not just headsmen alone. Neighboring communities is often in the news. In Ebonyi State, for instance, a few weeks back, people who speak the same languages, but because they belong to different villages or villages with different names, will set upon each other with machetes and guns because they are fighting over farmland. So, and if you look at the northern flank, the extreme northern flank of this country, the Sahara Desert is pushing at a very, very violent rate down south. And the northern state governments are just not doing enough. They ought to have translated the initiative. The government had this initiative of a great green wall. A great green wall, a shelter belt of trees planted across all the way from Kebbi State in the northwest to Borno State in the northeast to stop the advancement of the desert. If that happens, it will not restore environmental stability overnight, but give it time. Give it 5 years, 10 years, and more. And all these problems we are having of headsmen migrating southwards will stop, because the shelter belt will provide for environmental change. The weather will automatically change, and the land will become arable and livable again. People will not be migrating to other places. So these are environmental factors that impact very, very badly on agriculture. So if government is the only power that can do things and do them drastically, and if government continues to not pay sufficient attention to things like the Great Green Wall, people will continue, not just herdsmen alone, people will continue migrating towards the coastline. And by the time the coastline is choked, where are we going to? We are going to move into the Atlantic Ocean? Is that what we're going to do? So let's look at these things in a bigger picture and do things drastically about it. It is not something impossible to do, because there are countries in the Arabian Gulf where sometimes rain does not fall. But people live there and they maximize productivity in those desert, sandy environments.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Julius Oga. We'll be taking a quick break now because of our time. Then, but when we are back from the break, we'll continue with the discussion. Please stay with us.
My name is Chiwendu Osisiago, presenter Television Nigerian Business Daily. In a globalizing world, ours is to keep you engaged, informed, and educated on contemporary happenings in the business world. We therefore command a special audience of business-minded viewers who are eager to know more about business, I mean your business. Why don't you take advantage of our special affordable offer to let the world know about your concepts, your goods, and of course, your services. You can call us on 080-3071-6959 or 070-3234-9054. You can also visit us at Television Nigerian in Guzapi, Abuja, and follow us on all the social media handles on Facebook, YouTube, and of course, on Twitter at Television Nigerian. Your business is our concern.
Thanks for joining us again on the program. And if you're just joining us, it's TV and Business Daily. Of course, we've been discussing on COVID-19, the agricultural sector in focus. My guest is in the studio who has been discussing with us on that. Is a journalist and also a farmer, Mr. Julius Oga. Okay, now you mentioned a lot of things that farmers, a lot of challenges that farmers are actually going through. So now, how do you think the government can actually come in to help this sector?
Yes, there is too much for the government to do, and it is too much, such to the extent that even what they do just feels like no effort at all. So it is also time we began to ask the question, what can we as individuals and what can the private sector, the organized and also the free private sector do to support and supplement what the government is doing in the sector? If we continue to rely on the government alone, and in the kind of dysfunctional system in which our own economy is, then I'm afraid the order will be too tall to be met. The government is doing its best, and at no time in recent history has the government made a determined effort to energize the agricultural sector as this government has. So we ought to give them the benefit of the doubt and rally in to support what they are doing. Agriculture at one point was the biggest foreign exchange provider for our economy. And it is quite unfortunate, and I have said many times before and I'll continue to say, that because we sold oil, we literally abandoned the agricultural sector because cheap money came from oil. So, unfortunately, we don't drink oil for subsistence. Whatever we do with oil, no matter how many barrels we sell, we still need to food. We still need to eat. So the government has made so many initiatives, taken up so many programs to provide financing and incentives for the agricultural sector. But the private sector, which is the actual driver of business, including the small business sector, ought to also think about agriculture as the next pot of gold. If you invest in farming, and like I've often said, your immediate objective is to derive profit, you may end up being disappointed. If you have the passion, if we all collectively would have the passion to invest in that sector and just let the passion alone drive us and not the profit, the sector will grow to the level to which the profit will just come as a matter of course. It will no longer require, this start and stop and push and start kind of thing we are doing at the moment. So government incentives, yes, there are so many of them. So many, sometimes they run riot in my head. But they are too little for a country with the population and size and the nature of problems that Nigeria has. So the private sector also needs to come in and drive that sector. People should emulate like Aliko Dangote and invest in the agro-allied sector like he has done. If there were 5 Dangotes across all the regions of Nigeria, investing in the agro-allied sector and doing what he is doing, there will be so much change in our economy from agriculture alone. I keep making this lamentation, and I'll continue to make it. A time is coming when, at this point in time, if you're driving through Nasarawa, Benue states, and Taraba, you see so much food, fruits and vegetables, and tubers. But the capacity to change them into something that adds value to the farmers who are producing these things is just not there. Why should people grow oranges and there are people in the city who will go and buy orange juice that is industrial, and fresh oranges are rotting in the village? The same thing will happen to cashew. The same thing will happen to bananas. The same thing will happen to mangoes. We transport bananas and plantains from the forest regions on this country by heavy trucks on our roads all the way to other parts of the country because there is no processing capacity for those industries. Benue State should have no business waiting for federation account allocation in order to be able to run the economy. So that is the extent to which people and government can collaborate to make that sector what it ought to be.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Julius Oga. So now, because of our time, let's round up. What's your final conclusion?
Oh, we've said so much today, and there is no exhausting the value of developing the agro value chain. There's just no way you can exhaust it, because like I was saying before you gave me this opportunity again, if in Benue State we could produce cashew juice, cashew nuts, process mango juice, and all the derivative that we could do with the fruit, if somewhere we could produce coconut wines and all those things, we won't be moving these things in heavy trucks across the country that are damaging our roads, because we don't have, we're just trying to develop the railway sector. There will be so much jobs at our own doorsteps. There will be companies and cottage industries keeping young people busy. And when those young people are busy, they won't be looking for guns to go and kidnap people and to go and burn down villages so that they can steal other people's wealth. So these are things that you can already see that the youthful population of our country is looking for something to keep them busy. Unfortunately, they are choosing something, they are choosing the course that is alarming everybody and will ultimately lead to a catch-22 situation if care is not taken. So the reason for insecurity in our country is because people are jobless, and the reason why people are jobless is because there are no industries and manufacturing companies, and the textile factories that used to absorb a lot of people are closed down. So if these things are up and working, a lot more people will not choose the options of going into crime. So my last take is we should make a concerted effort and help the government, and the government too should sometimes take hard policies and decisions that will make people change the orientation. Things may not change overnight, but when they change gradually over time, people adapt, and the country will be better for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Julius. Okay, it's just a wake-up call for all of us, not just the government alone, but the youth, the old, the young. We should all come together to put our hands together to ensure that the agricultural sector is working and reduce the level of exporting, putting other things into the country instead of, it should be the other way around. We Nigerians exporting out to other countries for a better Nigeria and a better 2021. Thank you very much, Mr. Julius Oga, for coming on TV and Business today.
It's a pleasure. To have you. Thank you very much for having me.
And that's the much we have for you today on TV and Business Daily. I am Chiwando Osisiago. And don't forget that you can follow us on all our social media platforms, on Facebook, on YouTube, and of course on Twitter at Television Nigerian. Do have a wonderful day. Bye for now.